Good afternoon, everyone. I see people walking in. Good afternoon. Just want to welcome everyone to our committee, our Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. Committee Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Dickman. Here. Assemblyman Frierson. Here. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Here. Assemblywoman Howdegi. Assemblyman Levitt. Here. Assemblyman Matthews. Here. Assemblyman MacArthur. Here. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Here. Assemblywoman Thomas. Here. Assemblywoman Torres. Here. Chair Miller.
Here. And with that, will you please mark Assemblywoman or Vice Chair Howdegi present when she arrives? So just a few reminders of housekeeping issues, asking everyone to keep their mask on, reminding everyone that we will take up to 30 minutes of public comment at the end of the meeting, and that everyone will have the opportunity to make public comment for up to 2 minutes, as well as testimonies that we will take for those that are here in person or on the phone or on the Zoom in up to 2 minutes. We were planning a work session, but that will be moved until we have all of our members present. So with that, yes, thank you, Senator. With that, we will, do we have our bill sponsors here? We actually have 2 bills on the agenda. Today we'll be hearing Senate Bill 268 and SJR 6. Broadcasting, do we have, I know one senator will be presenting by Zoom.
Chair, there is nobody on the Zoom at this time.
We will go into a 5-minute recess.
Are you ready? Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, you're coming through.
I can hear you in the Zoom.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Chair Miller and committee members.
Excuse me, Senator, we're still in recess right now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought she said that you all were ready for me. No worries.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to call everyone back to order. We will begin again. We have two bill hearings this evening. First one is SB 268, presented by Senator Harris, and it revises the provisions related to state financial administration. So I will open the hearing on SB 268. Senator? And then Senator Harris, once you get settled and take a moment, we're ready for you when you'd like to proceed.
Oh, well, good afternoon, everyone. Chair Miller and committee members, I am Dallas Harris, representing Senate District 11 in Clark County. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to present Senate Bill 268, a bill relating to state financial administration, which will allow us to test the strength of the state budget against a series of economic conditions. Before going over the specifics of SB 268, I would like to explain briefly why I believe it's important for us to pass this bill. Following the 2008 financial crisis and during the ensuing Great Recession, the United States Congress imposed regulations addressing the viability of the nation's financial industry. This included what is known as stress tests on the banking industry. Private financial firms, such as Moody's Analytics, have since been conducting budget stress tests in various states. Starting in 2015, the state of Utah began financial stress testing for its own state budgets, and by 2017, included this practice in state law. The state of Minnesota was also an early adopter of budget stress testing, and in 2019, the states of Montana and Nebraska passed laws requiring their fiscal analyst offices to stress test the annual budget. Several other states and numerous local jurisdictions across the country have also conducted budget stress testing for various components of their budgets. So what is the purpose of a budget stress test? According to the Pew Charitable Trust, budget stress tests help states estimate the potential financial shortfalls that could result from adverse events, a dramatic economic downturn, for example, or an outbreak of an illness, such as the one caused by the novel coronavirus. Policymakers can use this data to plan ahead, helping to avert or limit a fiscal emergency and keep long-term priorities on track. Essentially, fiscal experts apply various financial scenarios against existing and predicted revenues and expenditures that could replicate, for example, a recession or other events that could impact state finances. This practice can inform our actions as legislators and help us set targets for how much money our state may have to cover unanticipated revenue shortfalls or predict more favorable outcomes. A budget stress test can help us evaluate various tax and spending decisions, set reserve goals, consider our dependence on particularly volatile revenue streams, and ensure our critical state programs are funded adequately. With this background, you can see how important SB 268 can be for the state of Nevada. This bill is very simple and straightforward. In short, the measure requires the Legislative Council Bureau's Fiscal Analysis Division, to the extent resources are available, to perform a budget stress test in each even-numbered year, comparing the estimated future revenue to and the estimated future expenditure from the major funds in the state treasury under various potential economic conditions. A report regarding the results of this test must be posted on the legislature's website and submitted to the governor and the legislature. The bill language is intentionally broad, so our fiscal staff can conduct this test using various methodologies and scenarios. From this budget stress test, legislators should be more informed when making critical policy and funding decisions that impact our many state programs. Thank you very much, Chair Miller and committee, for hearing SB 268. Also present today is Wayne Thorley, our Senate fiscal analyst. As LCB staff, he's unable to advocate for or against the passage of legislation, but he is here to say a few words and can help answer questions you may have concerning the budget stress test process. Of course, I'm also happy to answer any questions you all may have as well. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Thorley will just be answering questions if appropriate. I submit myself to the committee.
Absolutely. And Senator, we will go ahead and address questions to you directly, and then you will let us know when you would like to refer that question on to Mr. Thorley.
All of them. No,
Okay,
just kidding.
all of them. All right, fair enough. All right, with that, committee members, do we have any questions? Okay, so I see a few. So I will start with Assemblyman Matthews.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator. Always good to see you. So I know this is not a money committee, and I know the chair will.
And the chair is going to stop you right now. So Assemblyman Matthews, will you please redirect your question in the form of a policy focus?
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
And I was going to preemptively say I'm going to try to phrase this in a way that doesn't get to the money, to the money aspect of it. I'm trying to get a sense of what kind of a lift this will be and the workload that this would put on the Fiscal Analysis Division, just, with an eye toward making sure we've got the personnel to do this. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Assemblyman Matthews. To you, through Chair Miller, Dallas Harris, for the record. I will. Thank you so much. I drafted this legislation in concert with the Fiscal Analysis Division. And so we, as I mentioned in my opening testimony, kept it very broad in order to give our staff some time to figure out what the best tool is, if they need to maybe possibly purchase something to work with other fiscal staff in some of the states that I mentioned are already doing this, and develop what will be a best practice. I also took into consideration time constraints, as we know our fiscal staff turns right around right after we're done here, and they are working on the next biennium. And so I want to make sure that they have time to do this and give them the legs they need to figure out the best way to do it with the resources available.
Thank you. And a quick follow-up, Chair?
Yes, please.
And just to be clear, that this concept makes a lot of sense to me. It certainly seems like something that the state ought to be doing. My last question would be, is there anything that's currently being done that sort of approaches the intent of this? Anything somewhat comparable that this would be replacing or supplementing, or are we sort of starting from square one on this? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Assemblyman Matthews. Dallas Harris, for the record. I'll let Mr. Thorley correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll take a shot at it. We have the Economic Forum, and a lot of our budgeting and forecasting is done through the Economic Forum. It is not my understanding that they conduct what is a stress test. That's not currently in their function. So this would not be supplanting anything that's currently done. It would be a new analysis done by our fiscal division, and I imagine probably in conjunction with the Governor's Office of Finance as well.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Senator. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Next question from Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Hello, Senator. Thank you, Chair. Assemblywoman Gonzalez, District 16 for the record. Thank you so much for this bill. My question was, So it says to the extent of available resources. So are we mandating that they do this, or are we saying like whatever they can do? Like what does that exactly mean? If you could just clarify that for me. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Gonzalez. We are mandating that they do it if they can.
Is that the legal terminology, Senator?
Dallas Harris, for the record, yes.
Okay. Members, additional questions? Assemblywoman Dixon?
Thank you, Chair. So is there such thing as a abbreviated budget stress test? I mean, could they do, if they didn't have the resources to do an in-depth, would they do a little bit lesser one that would be helpful, or?
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman. Dallas Harris, for the record, it is my intention that the fiscal analysis staff take a look at what the best practices are, what their current capabilities are, and put their best foot forward at, doing something new.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Any additional questions? Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Harris. Good to see you. I just had a question. We do have the Economic Forum that meets in December and May, and their reports are brought back to this legislative body. What would happen if the stress test came up with an opposing conclusion than the Economic Forum? Where would be then?
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Dallas Harris. For the record, I'll take my best shot at this. And again, Mr. Thorley, if I mess it up, please save me. So it's my understanding the stress test will not necessarily predict our revenues and expenditures. That will still be done during the economic forum. And so you will not see competing numbers coming from the stress test. What it is designed to do is be an additional piece of information for our fiscal staff, for the Finance Committee, possibly for the Interim Finance Committee, to take into consideration as they look at budgeting decisions moving forward.
So, Madam Chair, as a follow-up, I know that this is not a money committee. However, if this bill were to pass, we know that our staff, our fiscal staff is, as you said in your presentation, is stretched thin. We may have to add personnel to accommodate this.
And Assemblywoman, this is not a money committee, so I'm glad you appreciate that. Any other questions from members?
And Chair, if I may, I'm sure the fiscal staff would welcome additional staff with or without the passage of this bill, but we'll set that for another day.
Thank you for your advocacy, Senator. I have a few questions myself, okay? So my first question is, in the bill, you have it each even numbered year. And so you mentioned earlier that other states do this. Do other states do this with the same frequency?
Thank you for the question, Chair Miller. Dallas Harris, for the record. I'm going to take a guess here that they do not, only because not all states budget in the biennium like we do, and so that's where the frequency comes from in this bill. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe the Utah legislature does it as often as their budgeting cycle occurs.
Okay, so, and that's what I was implying. We know that, 46 states are annual, so that's what I was implying, whether it's annual or biennial. But they actually do it with the frequency of whenever they're doing their budget?
Mr. Thorley, to the rescue.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal. It's good to be back in Assembly Ledge Ops, where I spent a lot of time the last couple sessions. The Utah Legislative Fiscal Analyst Office does the budget stress test every 3 years. It's not an exercise that you gain a lot by doing it annually, for example. It's intended for long-term planning purposes and policy discussions related to that.
Mr. Thorley, in your opinion and professional expertise, would you say then, because it is something meant for long-term planning, that it wouldn't necessarily have to occur every biennium, but maybe like all long-term strategic plans at 5 years or 10-year increments?
So Wayne Thorley for the record. I'd prefer the senator answer that. I can tell you, in working with Senator Harris on the language of the bill, our recommendation coming out of the Fiscal Analysis Division was every other year, simply because we're not in session every other year. In session years, fiscal staff is very busy, obviously doing other things, and so the idea behind the every other year language in the even numbered years was to sync it up in non-session years.
Okay. My next question, and this may be for the senator or maybe for legal, actually. So in this, when I'm looking at list of recommendations and looking at duplication of efforts and such, I would imagine that some of the recommendations could include eliminating certain departments, combining certain departments and agencies, certain efforts, such like that. That's what my assumption is.
Thank you for the assumption, Chair Miller. I envision this actually to see recommendations such as maybe we need to increase our reserve percentage because something could be coming down the line and we stress tested it and we would not be sufficiently capitalized under this particular scenario, which has a certain percentage chance of happening or not. Not making recommendations that would be, I would consider maybe policy recommendations.
Okay, because I wonder, specifically that sometime when we're talking about programming and the structure of government, that often there's always a fiscal impact. So if there's a duplication of services and that's something they're looking at fiscally, I'm just wondering if that, but you're saying you're focused on just fiscally, because I'm also trying to separate between, you know, what we just mentioned that, you know, already occurs every time with the name slipping me, the
Economic Forum.
Thank you. How could I forget
You're
that,
welcome.
right? The Economic Forum. So that's why I'm trying to see the separation.
Senator Harris, for the record, just like the Economic Forum does not necessarily make recommendations about which programs to cut, they just tell us what dollars we have. I would imagine this would be something similar. Our fiscal staff is really great at leaving those type of policies decisions to us at the legislature, and I do not see them changing and encroaching on that, although they may offer suggestions about what services we may see an increase in. It would be up to us to how to address that
Okay.
on that granular level.
I have another question, Senator. In the states that do this, are they done from internally? Because I'm just wondering too, if we're asking legislative staff to do this, would it be for the entire scope of all three branches or just one particular branch or within our own branch? And then, of course, and maybe legal could address this if necessary, is there any conflict with that?
Thank you for the question, Chair Miller. I can state that in Utah, the fiscal staff handles the stress tests. I don't, and I'll, of course, if we need committee counsel to respond, I'm sure she's more versed than I am, but I don't think we have necessarily a separation of powers issue, given that it is the legislature's job to pass the budget every year. Every other year.
Right. One final question. One final question. When you say stress test, and I know, and I am not a fiscal person, but I know that there are accreditations and programs and processes and stuff. Is there would there be a nationally recognized process or set of good practices or something that would be followed? Or would it just be like, okay, fiscal, just go at it and tell us what you think?
Thank you for the question, Dallas Harris, for the record. What I imagine is actually going to happen in practice is that our fiscal staff is going to put some feelers out to their colleagues in other states. And I know that Mr. Thorley has already had some discussions with his counterparts in Utah, for example. Maybe they'll go to NCSL and look at the best practices and bring that back to the state. The bill is not so prescriptive as to require any one methodology. But again, that's done to allow our staff to figure out what works best for us here in Nevada. And I'm fairly confident in their abilities to find something that will do us proud.
Thank you, Senator. Members, are there any additional questions? Speaker, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My mom looks at me like that sometimes. Senator, I was curious, and I had to step out briefly, so I apologize if you addressed it, but I was just curious, and I asked this question at least on or offline with almost every policy. Is there something that we are fixing, or is there some need that we have not had that is exemplified that this would correct?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. I believe this is my first time sitting in a committee that you're on, so it's a pleasure to see you. I can be honest. The answer absolutely is no. Nevada is one of the best fiscal states when it comes to practices out there. This would just make us a bit better.
Okay, thank you. And with that, that concludes our questions. So I would like to open it up for testimony. So first, it doesn't appear there's anyone in the room that is coming forward in testimony of support of SB 268. So broadcasting, can we open the line for anyone on the line that would like to testify in support of 268, SB 268?
Chair, the testimony line is open and working. However, we have no one on the line to testify in support on AB 268.
Okay, thank you. I will open it up for anyone wishing to testify in opposition. There's no one here physically in the room. Broadcasting, do we have anyone on the line that would like to testify in opposition of SB 268?
Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in opposition to SB 268.
Okay, do we have anyone in the room that would like to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 268? Not seeing anyone in the room physically. Broadcasting, do we have anyone on the line that would like to testify in neutral of SB 268?
Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in neutral on SB 268.
Okay, thank you for that. So I will close the testimonies for SB 268. Senator, would you like to make any final remarks?
I just want to thank you, Chair Miller, for taking the time to hear this bill, and just want to reiterate how great our fiscal staff is here. I think this will be just another tool in the toolbox to make sure that we're prepared for whatever may come in the future. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Senator. And with that, I will close the hearing on SB 268. I will open the hearing on SJR 6, which is presented by Senator Spearman and expresses support for the creation of a retirement plan for spouses of members of the military. Good to see you, Senator. We are ready whenever you are.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Miller and committee members. I'm Pat Spearman. I represent Senate District 1, and the measure before you today, Senate Joint Resolution 6, calls on the federal government to address the issue of military spouses' loss of retirement benefits due to frequent relocations. This resolution is simple and yet incredibly important. The men and women of the United States military and their families give selflessly of themselves in the service to this nation. It is therefore incumbent upon the federal government to do all that we can do to support those individuals. This past summer, the Legislative Committee on Senior Citizens, Veterans, and Adults with Special Needs heard testimony from two military spouses serving in Nevada. These spouses are professionals in their own industry and shared their story, experiences, and the employment challenges of the spouses for who they serve. According to the Department of Defense, there are more than 630,000 military spouses in the United States and 5,415 active duty spouses in Nevada. Compared to civilians, military spouses who are 93% female are 10 times more likely than other workers to have moved to a new state in the last year due to military relocation. As a result of these frequent moves associated with military life, military spouses earn significantly less when they work. They earn significantly less when they work compared to their civilian counterparts. However, they are often more formally educated than their civilian colleagues. So the barrier is the ability to get a job and leverage the expertise they have developed through training and education. According to a survey by Blue Star Families, 35% of military spouses work in a licensed occupation, 30% are unemployed, and 56% are underemployed. Unfortunately, our military spouses face two choices. One, family separation if they choose to remain in their current employment, or keep the family intact by moving but possibly incur job loss. The issues of military spouse unemployment and underemployment affects household incomes, long-term financial stability, and personal fulfillment and wellness. While 2/3 of American families have two incomes, less than half of the military couples do. However, depending on the service member's rank, many military families require a dual income. Currently, a private first class, and that's an E3 in the military, with less than 2 years of service makes $2,104 a month. Let that set in. While the average rent in North Las Vegas is $1,212 a month. The employment situation of military spouses has been a priority for the U.S. Department of Defense for several years. The department understands that a spouse's employment situation severely impacts military readiness, since many service members leave the military because their spouse's inability to work. As someone who has served, I believe families are the ones that make the greatest sacrifices. I often say, when we serve, our families serve. They sacrifice their time, placing their lives on hold, they sacrifice their careers, and most importantly, they sacrifice their loved ones for the safety of our country. When we deploy overseas, our minds are consumed with completing the mission at hand. But for those who stay behind, their minds are consumed with the unknown. For those reasons and others, SJR 6 urges the federal government to create and implement a retirement plan that addresses the loss of retirement benefits for spouses of military service members due to frequent relocations, that is funded by the Department of Defense Appropriations Act. Madam Chair, the anxiety for which military families experience is also exacerbated by those who have seen their spouse on multiple deployments in and out of Iraq, in and out of Afghanistan, and even if they were not going directly to a combat zone, many people have deployed in support of other operations around the world that support these war efforts. I believe that it's time for us to stop saying, quote, "I appreciate your service," if we are not willing to stand up and tangibly express that gratitude. Madam Chair and committee members, this is an important bill that can positively impact the lives of our military families. Thank you for your consideration and support of Senate Joint Resolution 6. And this concludes my testimony. I will stand for any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And our first question will come from Vice Chair Howdigee.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Spearman, for presenting this bill. I just have a quick question. It's just more for my knowledge. Are spouses not entitled to their spouse's retirement right now if they're married to an active military member or veteran?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Assemblywoman Howdigee. I am really glad that you asked that question because it gives me an opportunity to highlight some of the things that happen. This bill is not for, quote, instead of the spouse's employment. Someone who, for example, is a social worker, if they were to stay in one location, they can probably buy into, or they will accrue enough years so that when they retire after 20 years, 15 years, or whatever it is, they have their separate retirement. Military spouses, because they're always on the move, never have a chance to do that. If that spouse is a teacher, the same thing happens. They're moving so much they never have an opportunity to get vested. One of the very unfortunate things that happens, in my opinion, all too often, and that is there are some times when military spouses will serve with the military member, and either just before they retire or right at the time that they are going to retire, sometimes there's a divorce. And as a pastor, I have counseled with women, I'm sure there might be some men, but mostly women, who have tried to figure out what in the world they're going to do now because the spouse, the military member, has divorced them, has remarried, and they are not entitled to any of the military members' retirement benefits. So what this really does is it says to those who are professionals, who follow their spouse around, they will have an opportunity to work in their profession, but they will also have an opportunity to get vested in a retirement plan of their own, independent of the military spouse's employment or not or lack thereof. So that's why this bill is urging at the federal government. I don't believe that state by state it would work. I know that we've had several conversations in this body, particularly as it relates to teachers and other public service employees. And so this is the way that I believe we can make sure that those military spouses have their own retirement. And besides that, you know, I talked about self-fulfillment. So it's not instead of the retirement that they would get from the military service members, but it is in addition to.
Members, any additional questions? Okay, Senator, I have a few questions. First, and following a little bit what Vice Chair Howdy was saying, we know that when it comes to IRAs, that spouses are able to contribute $6,000 a year on behalf of their non-working spouse. And of course, $7,000 if you're over a certain age. So I was just wondering, is this something that you would envision happening? Or you're just saying, because that mechanism's already in place. So would it be something that would be a contribution like that or an actual military retirement in their name?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It would actually be a military retirement in their name. And I guess I can put it as succinctly as this. For couples who are not in the military, if they are in a profession, one is a doctor, the other is a nurse, they have an opportunity to do just what you asked me. They have an opportunity to, in addition to whatever retirement they're getting in their profession, they have an opportunity to do that. If you're a military spouse, you don't have that opportunity because you're bouncing around the world supporting your spouse who is deployed several different places and several different times. So this is not, I don't think that an IRA giving them the opportunity or using what's already available, I don't think that solves the problem. I don't think that you should give up the opportunity to get vested and have your own retirement, to work in your profession just because you are trying to support the military member. And if I might say, add this, one of the things, 28% of the service members who are asked about reenlistment say that it is important to them. Reenlistment many times, 28% reenlistment many times hinges on whether or not their spouse can work in their chosen profession. Imagine you're a teacher and you're married to someone in the military, and the choice is they're getting ready to be reassigned to Germany, to Frankfurt, and your choice is pick up and leave, and if you're not vested in as a teacher here in Clark County, you pick up and leave and you go to Frankfurt. Maybe you can find a job over there with one of the DoD schools, maybe not. Or you're here in Clark County and your spouse is reassigned to MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. You go to Florida, there's no way that you're going to be able to start at the same tenure that you are in Clark County. And I just think that that is patently unfair. These are the people that are supporting us when we are deployed, and to deny them an opportunity to have a retirement of their own in their own profession, denying them that when those who are in civilian households have that. There's never a question in a civilian household, because most of the time both partners will decide, well, if I go here for a promotion, what would that do to your profession? In the military, that's not an option. That's not an option.
Senator, my next question, and this is going in another direction. When it comes to resolutions that we're sending to Congress, and I'm just trying to get a global picture of this. One is, have there been, I see that there's a study in the recommendations. Are there any bills right now that have been introduced in Congress that are somewhere in the House or the Senate that haven't moved or have been introduced, or is this preemptive to, encourage bills? And also, do you have any idea how many other states, if there are other states that have also sent similar resolutions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not aware of other states that have sent a resolution. This particular resolution comes at the behest of the military spouses who testified before us this in the interim in our military veterans and adults with special needs committee. This is something that they suggested because they said right now, quote, we don't have an opportunity to do that. I have talked with each member of our federal delegation, though, and let them know that this bill is making its way through this body, and indeed have sent a copy of the bill to their assistants to say, once it passes, I really would appreciate introducing a bill, whether it's in the House or in the Senate. But we have to get started with this. And like I said before, I know that every time I left the States, and there were a couple of times I left and I couldn't even tell my family where I was going. That is a horrible position to be put in. But family members do it because it supports us. For those who have been deployed multiple times, and during the last 20 years, even if you were deployed, even if you weren't deployed overseas, many times you might have moved from Fort Hood, Texas, to Fort Lewis, Washington, or Joint Base, Washington. There are a number of different places, and as the spouse picks up and moves, they lose whatever tenure they have. And so, as I said before, whenever people find out I'm a veteran, they always say, well, thank you for your service. And I say, thank you. And I say to other veterans, thank you for your service. And it's a lot easier to say that than it is for us to do something that tangibly represents our gratitude. And this is one of the ways that I think we can do that. The spouses support us when we're deployed, and I believe that putting this in the Department of Defense Appropriation Act, I believe that it shows the spouses, we appreciate your service too.
Okay, thank you. Members, any additional questions? Okay, not seeing any, then I will open it up for testimony. Is there anyone physically in the room that would like to? Okay, there's no one physically in the room broadcasting. Is there anyone on the line that would like to testify in support of SJR 6?
Chair, there is no one on the line to testify in support of JR 6.
Okay, is there anyone in the room that would like to testify in opposition of SJR 6? Not seeing anyone. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the line that would like to testify in opposition of SJR 6?
Chair, there is also no one on the line to testify in opposition to SJR 6.
Okay, is there anyone in the room that would like, there's no one in the room that would like to testify in neutral. So broadcasting, is there anyone on the line that would like to testify in neutral of SJR 6?
Chair, there is also no one in neutral to testify on SJR 6. Sorry, the extra initial has thrown me off. I apologize.
I know, I have to keep looking as well. Thank you for that broadcasting. I will go ahead and close testimony. And Senator, if you'd like to make any final remarks.
Yes, ma'am. I would urge you all to support this resolution. The spouses, military spouses, are indeed the wind beneath our wings. We could not do what we do were it not for their support. And this is a tangible way that we can say to them, thank you for your service. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. And with that, I will close the hearing on SJR 6. Next item on our agenda, and now that we have all of our members present, is our work session. So I know that we have 3 bills that we will work session today. The first one will be Assembly Bill 441. So I'm going to turn it over to our policy analyst, Mr. Pepper Stern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pepper Sturm, Committee Policy Analyst, and as an LCB employee, I cannot advocate for or against any legislation. I'm just here to walk the committee through the work session documents. As the Chair mentioned, AB 441 was introduced by Assemblyman Frierson. We heard the bill on April 22nd. That measure provides that when a legislative vacancy occurs after the general election, but before the regular session is convened, the caucus leader of the House and party of that legislator, of which that legislator was a member, may allocate all, some, or none of the former legislators' allocated requests for BDRs. The measure establishes deadlines for submitting the BDRs and for providing the details needed to draft the legislation. Requests allocated to other legislators are not counted against that legislator's existing BDR limits. Any such requests sent to committees must be approved by a majority of the members of the committee prior to submittal for drafting. Further, a legislator appointed to fill a vacancy is authorized to solicit or accept contributions from other legislators or from an organization whose primary purpose is to support legislators of a particular party or house. The contribution amount that may be accepted must not exceed $10,000 for a regular session or $1,200 for a special session. Limits are placed on how that money may be spent, and conditions are specified for the disposal of unspent contributions. And there were no amendments submitted for that bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions? Okay, not seeing any questions on Assembly Bill 441. I will take a vote. All those in favor of, oh, I'm making all kinds of assumptions now. I will entertain a motion on Assembly Bill 441. Thank you. I have a motion from Vice Chair Howdiggy. Do I have a second? Second by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. With that, I will take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed to Assembly Bill 441? Okay, will the nays please state their name for the record? So we have Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman Matthews, Assemblyman MacArthur, and Assemblyman Levitt. Okay, and with that, the motion passes. And I would like to assign that to Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Thank you. Can we move on to Senate Bill 84?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 84 increases the maximum number of voters in an election precinct. That measure was submitted to the legislature on behalf of the committee to conduct an interim study on the requirements for a reapportionment and redistricting in the state of Nevada. The committee heard the bill on April 27th, and very simply, Senate Bill 84 increases the maximum size of an election precinct from 3,000 to 5,000 registered voters, and there were no amendments proposed for this bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, do we have any questions? Not seeing any questions, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to do pass, Madam Chair.
We have a motion to do pass by Vice Chair Howdigy and a second by Assemblywoman Dickman. Is there any comments or questions on the motions? On the motion? Not seeing any, I will take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the motion passes unanimously from all the members that are here. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblywoman Gonzalez. You're welcome. Next, we will move on to SJR 7, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pepper Sturm again. Senate Joint Resolution 7 proposes to amend the Nevada Constitution to remove the constitutional provisions governing the election and duties of the Board of Regents of the State University, and to authorize the legislature to provide by statute for the governance of the State University and for the auditing of public institutions of higher education in the state. The measure was heard on April 29th. It was sponsored by Senator Nondera Loop and Assemblyman Roberts. Again, it removes the Board of Regents from the Constitution, and the legislature will provide for by law for the governance of the university and the establishment of the various departments. In addition, the resolution stipulates that proceeds of public lands donated for the support of the institution shall be invested by the state of Nevada as required by law. There are no amendments for consideration at this time. And just as a special note, if this resolution is passed by the 2021 legislature, it must also be passed in identical form by the next legislature and then be approved and ratified by the voters in an election before the proposed amendments to the Constitution become effective. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any questions, I will entertain a motion.
I would move to I would move to do pass.
I think the bill's sponsor. Okay, so we have a motion to do pass from Vice Chair Howdigy and a second from Assemblyman Levitt. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Those that are in opposition, will you please state your name for the record? Thank you. And with that, the motion passes. I will assign that floor state. Oh, you won't be there. I don't live there. You're right. You don't live there anymore. I will assign that floor statement to Vice Chair Howdigy. Thank you, and the motion passes. Okay, and so with that, we are rolling one of the other items to our next, we will do a work session on it on Thursday. So with that, we are finished with our work session items. The last item on our agenda for today is public comment. Broadcasting, can you open the lines for public comment, please?
Chair, the public comment line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Okay, we'd like to give them a few moments because we know that depending on how they're viewing, they may be a minute or so behind. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the line?
Chair, the public comment line is open, and there is still no callers.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will close public comment. Again, we have finished all of our agenda items for the day. We will meet again this Thursday at 4 o'clock on May 13th. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.